language.
I've got no doubts that in the past, and however many years ago that was, we could go back, I don't know, 100 years, 50 years, 200 years, yes, there was in the beginning an obvious problem between black people and white people. You know, people did find it difficult to accept black people in their environment. Yes, there was a problem there, and that's probably stemmed to what all this is all about. But the difference is that a lot of people have moved on, and a lot of black people haven't.
We should look into things. They're saying, oh, black people just look into everything and see racism. We should look into things, because if racism existed in the first place, surely it still exists now. You know, you can't turn to me and say, I was horrible to you then, but I'm okay to you now. I ask, why were you horrible to me in the first place? You know, so we are going to naturally do that. You know, it's like the Jewish people. You know, they had this problem with the Holocaust, you know, but they're not going to trust anybody again. You know, they took their entire culture and traveled with it and built it to the empire that it is today, simply because they could only rely on themselves. If they just let go after the Holocaust stopped and just say, oh, well, it's all over now, we're okay, we don't have to look into it, it's still going to happen somewhere. So they took their culture and say, look, we can only confide in ourselves, so let us do things for ourselves. Whereas black people, we've been through a lot of things, you know, more than slavery. Slavery is just one little point in history, of our history. It's not, you know, it's not our entire history. And it's like, we do need to address those issues. So when we look into things, a lot of us look into things to do with racism to see if it's still there. Because there's no way you can wipe out racism. It's impossible, because there's no understanding between all the races.
I mean, the issue about the race card is something that any conscious policeman, any conscious member of society should be able to see through straight away. If people are in fact playing this particular card or taking this particular line, then a conscious person should be able to tell quite clearly, you know, whether they are or not. They are not. If they are, then in fact you take no notice of it. You actually pursue what is right. What is right, you pursue, irrespective of whether people are black or white, big or small, fat or thin, young or old, male or female. You know, you have to pursue what you see to be the right course of action. Now, if that course of action is a prejudiced course of action, then action has to be taken against the individual policeman or against the individual police force.
In a lot of respects, and I do keep mentioning this because it is a big valid reason as far as I'm concerned, and I spoke to you about it with the mobile awards. Okay. That has got to be the biggest wind-up to me, right? That's like doing that to me, or to the white people's race. You complain about racism, but then you go and do a mobile awards that is purely for black origin. Now, if that ain't racist, I don't know what is. So, who's the racist? Who's the victim?
Mobile awards means music of black origin. Doesn't say music of black people or music by black people. It says music of black origin. So it originated in black people, but who sings it today? Hardly any black people sing black music today. You know, Jamiroquai wins awards. Most acts in every year, most acts are becoming non-black, you know, doing black music, winning mobile awards. Where are all the black artists that should be winning these black awards? So it was a good way of creating something. Once again, it's using black people to create and to develop, you know, the product, like jazz music, like blues music, like hip hop, like everything, to be there to create it, and then they'll come in, push them to the side, and bring in their renditions of music, and then very soon you won't find black people making black music anymore. Yeah, or they will still make black music, but you won't see them in public. You won't see them, you know, in the charts. You won't see them in the retail stores. You'll see them in the underground stores because they're being pushed out their own music again. You know, down to hip hop. You know, they got, you know, the greatest rapper, who's this guy called Eminem, and yet, you know, what about people like KRS-One? What about, you know, the great rappers, you know, of the old school, you know, like Public Enemy, all those people who had a lot more to say, and yet Eminem comes with his, you know, little sad story about, you know, being in a trailer trash home and brought up in, you know, and then he's still complaining, even though he's got a record deal, he's still complaining about how bad his life is, you know, and there are so many rappers out there that have had it worse than him, and yet they don't have a movie out, you know, they don't have all this publicity, you know, they don't get posters put up in all the black neighborhoods like he does, you know, so it's imbalanced, put it that way. It's subtle, like I said, whether you want to call it racism, prejudice, or just ignorance, it's very unbalanced.
If I come into your house and it's tradition in your house that you take your shoes off when you walk in, then I respect your house and I will take my shoes off. If you came into my synagogue and it's a custom for you to wear a cup on your head, you will do that for respect. Right. You have come into our house, if you like. You have to abide by the rules of the country. You're in that house. So now you have to respect that. So, you know, when you talk about the different creeds and different colours and different religions and different cults of people, answer me this question. Is it right that Asians should have their own government in this country? Which is what they wanted in Birmingham. Is it right that they get permission to build mosques wherever they want? Because if you turn them down, it's racism.
I disagree with independent centres, like an Asian centre or a Jamaican, West Indian centre, because the society is already isolating us, and then we come and isolate ourselves by having a centre in a particular area and we don't mix. So when you cross over the border to somebody else's place, they've never used to mixing with you, it causes problems. Those are in the 60s. Don't want to go through them days anymore. You know what I mean? And I keep telling, a lot of people say, no, people got to have their identity and their culture. This is a modern world. The further we progress, the further people are understanding that this world is for everybody. Don't matter what borders they are and what passport you have, the world is for everyone. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, what does it mean if you have a West Indian centre or if you've got an African centre? Does that mean white people can't go there? Does that mean Jamaicans can't go there? But it does mean that. Because when you walk past and see the sign, people say, I can't go there. You see what I mean? So this is why we have our centre here, and our logo is, this is a centre of all nations. So anyone is entitled to walk through these doors, not because we may be in a predominantly black area. You know what I mean? It's going to be called a black this or a black that. No, it's a centre of all nations. It's for all nations. You know, and with the newspaper issue, I can understand that. You know what I mean? Because obviously, until the mainstream newspaper puts, you know, a section then in the newspaper for black, but then every other culture may say the same thing. You know what I mean? Then those newspapers will be there to inform the black community what's going on, in our view, in London and in England and abroad.
I think the ethnic minority needs to have a voice, because, you know, people within that community, you know, go through a lot, you know, in this society. And if there is no forum whereby, you know, their voice, you know, voices can be heard, obviously it would, you know, become more and more difficult for them to integrate into society and to achieve, you know, what they are capable of achieving.
The reason